All honor and praise and glory to the Most High, the higher, and only begotten Son, Yeshua. So let's give them all praises, all honor. So as you know, the health committee, which is comprised of brothers and sisters within the church, like Brother Kenny and Brother Sean and others that have been working tirelessly, looking and doing research in regards of the health. How can we, be aware of all the devil's devices that is out there? They are always gathering information to educate the congregation in regards of looking out for things and how devilish the devil is and his devices to try to deceive, destroy our people. So we must always be aware of what is out there and within the health industry and the food industry and what exactly to put in our food. So, Sister Patricia always focus on, organic food and natural food and she's always educating the body. I think you're in the health committee, correct, Sister Patricia? No, you should be. What's going on here? Okay, but it's very important because if you start really doing research on the food that you eat in the regular restaurant, regular supermarket, these fast food restaurants, they are straight from the pits of hell. They are defiled to the 5th degree, 10th degree, the 100th degree. So we have to be very careful to what we eat because our body is our temple. And we must make sure that we have everything holy and apart. And I mentioned this earlier, that the term righteousness, I think in the Bible study, actually means seeking holiness. So that's why in the scripture says, a righteous or a just man falls 7 times, but he gets back up, right? So showing you could be righteous and do mistakes. But your mission or your goal is to be what? Set apart, holy, separate from everybody else, not common, okay? So in our journey of waking back up and being asleep for, hundreds of years, then we have to be educated in every aspect of our lives. What we wear, what we eat, the people that we hang around with, the music we listen to, okay, the movies we watch, the television shows we watch, all of that is important because Satan is a worthy adversary. So you cannot underestimate Satan. Okay, so with that being said, and with that spirit, we, the health committee, which is Brother Sean and Brother Kenny, is going to be presenting today. And the title is, For the Most High Comes Healing, and He Shall Receive Honor of a King. So without further ado, let's give Brother Kenny and Brother Sean a round of applause.
All right, shalom, everybody. For of the Most High cometh healing, and He shall receive honor of the King. I think I picked that a few days ago. It took me forever. I was working on this presentation for a while. And for the longest, I couldn't figure out what to call it because really it's 2 presentations in one. It's like a part 1 and a part 2. And the reason why I did it that way is because there's a contrast to it. I'm going to show a comparison. And you're going to see what I'm talking about as I go later on into it. But how I came to putting this together, first and foremost, the Most High has to get the credit for it because a lot of this information that's in here, I stumbled across it when I wasn't even looking for it. So, He gets the credit first and foremost. But I wanted to do it different from the way we did it last time. Last time I did wickedness in high places. Sean did the demonic industry. And it seemed like from beginning to end, it was just like, hide your kids. It's just gloom and doom. So this one, it's going to start off kind of that way. And it's going to end The second half of it is going to be pretty much talking about the works of the Most High's hands, his creation, how we can utilize it to better treat our temples. Because the elder lately, he's been going into the 3 parts of fitness, which is physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness. We're going to focus on the first aspect of that, which is physical fitness. And I'm not talking about lifting weights or anything. What I'm talking about is the treatment of your blood. Because when you look at Leviticus 17 and 11, we know that that's where the spirit is. It's in the blood. So how you treat your blood has consequences, whether good or bad, on how you operate spiritually. The first half of this is going to be going into the psychiatric industry, focusing on the psychotropics, because Elder Rawchaa has been talking about that quite often. You know, I mean, it's not necessarily been like it's been a full lesson, but he's been throwing that in there a lot, talking about how they're trying any way to get you on these psychotropic drugs, whether it's so that you can not purchase a gun, or so that you can just be a prisoner psychologically to some level, just to have your temple be infiltrated by these evil spirits that persist us daily. A couple months ago, Elder Gabar gave a lesson where he was talking about what he sees as far as Donald Trump's presidency. And in that lesson, he went into a scripture. And I want to get the scripture. It's Matthew chapter 10, verse 21. And when he went into the scripture, that in combination with what Elder Rawchaa has been talking about, that pretty much turned my presentation to what it is now. Because it wasn't supposed to be this at all. It was supposed to be like a completely different presentation. But I guess the spirit was just moving, you know. So can we get that scripture? Matthew chapter 10, verse 21.
Con. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 21. And the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death.
That's it on that?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm not going to say too much on that. I've been reading that scripture my whole life, and it seems like a violent situation. That's the way I've always looked at it. I mean, I know a lot of people have looked at that as like apprehended, like you're getting, you know, dragged around or whatever. Your family's just taking you and delivering you up to incarcerate, whatever have you. But we're going to go into a few things, and we're going to talk about a different way of looking at that scripture. That it could be a violent situation. It might not. It might be a situation where your family is actually trying to help you out. So we're going to go into the first slide now, and we're going to go, it's just not going to be a thorough history of the psychiatric industry. If I'd have did that, I would have had about 100 slides. There's a whole bunch of documentaries on the internet that we can find regarding this topic. But what I wanted to do is cite what they're doing and how we can counter them. What the adversary's been trying to do and how we can counter them. So let's start with the first slide, Brother Amina.
Emil Kraepelin, born February 15, 1856, Neustrelitz, Mecklenburg-Strelitz, Germany. Died October 7, 1926, Munich, Germany. German psychiatrist, one of the most influential of his time, who developed a classification system for mental illness that influenced subsequent classifications. Kraepelin made distinctions between schizophrenia and manic depressive psychosis that remain valid today. After receiving his MD from the University of Würzburg, 1878, Kraepelin continued his studies under several German neuroanatomists, as well as with the experimental psychologist Wilhelm Wundt. Kraepelin employed Wundt's experimental techniques to study the effect of drugs, alcohol, and fatigue on psychological functioning, and in 1881 published a study of the influence of infectious disease on the onset of mental illness. He then began his Compendium der Psychiatry, 1883, in which he first presented his nosology, or classification of disorders. Kraepelin divided mental illness into exogenous disorders, which he felt were caused by external conditions and were treatable, and endogenous disorders, which had such biological causes as organic brain damage, metabolic dysfunctions, or hereditary factors, and were thus regarded as incurable.
Now this guy, Emil Kraepelin, however you pronounce it, he's one of the fathers of this industry, pretty much. He's, you know, one of the people who started it. People who teach this always go back to this guy, and there's some other brothers that I didn't put in here because, you know, I'm trying to streamline it. But let's go to the next slide and get a little bit more on him.
Appointed professor at the University of Dorpat, now Tartu, Estonia, in 1885, and then at the University of Heidelberg 6 years later, Kraepelin continued to refine his classification, issuing several revisions of his psychiatric textbook, which has grown to several volumes. In the 6th edition, 1899, he first made the distinction between manic depressive psychosis and dementia praecox, now called schizophrenia. He believed that manic depressive disorders and melancholia depression were exogenous and thus were treatable, while dementia praecox fell among the endogenous incurable illness. Kraepelin attributed dementia praecox to organic changes in the brain. He further distinguished at least 3 clinical varieties of the disease: catatonia, in which motor activities are disrupted, either excessively active or inhibited; hyperbrenia, characterized by inappropriate emotional reactions and behavior; and paranoia, characterized by delusionals of grandeur and of persecution. Kraepelin became professor of clinical psychiatry at the University of Munich in 1903 and remained there until 1922, when he became director of the Research Institute of Psychiatry in the same year in the same city. Throughout his career, he continued to refine his classification and was working on the 9th edition of his textbook when he died. The concepts embodied in Kraepelin's classification system did not originate with him, but he was the first to synthesize them into a workable model that could be used to diagnose and treat mental patients. His classifications was particularly influential during the early 20th century.
So in the beginning, pretty much, you know, these psychiatrists, they came together and they were coming with all these classifications. But they were kind of all over the place with it. Kraepelin was the one who actually put them in order so that they would be usable as something that they believed they could use to diagnose patients and treat them. So come on, let's go to the next slide. That's the first DSM. That one right there. Sorry I couldn't get a better quality picture. I forgot the negative. It says the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, the DSM, the first published in 1952, containing 112 mental disorders. So that's the first ever DSM, and this is really their Bible. This is the book that, you know, you're gonna find out later on. Like, they got symptoms for everything. You twitch your foot too much, they're gonna give you a prescription for something. Now, you go in there and tell them, you know, I'm nervous, or this and that and the other, they're going to go into this book and they're going to match with what you tell them with what they find in that book. Sometimes whether they find it or not, they're going to find a reason to have you leave with a prescription. The question remains is, what if you're lying? It's like, what if you just want a sample of the drug? You can still get it that way. So let's go to the next slide. That's the DSM-2. Came out in 1968, containing 145 mental disorders. So they jumped from 112 to 145 mental disorders, trying to broaden that net of diagnosis because they're trying to find reasons to make sure that anybody can get their hands on their pills. Let's go to the next slide. This is Dr. Joseph Schildkraut. Now, this is the man that actually kind of started the ignition for the psychiatric industry. And we're going to read a little bit about him and see how.
Joseph Jacob Schildkraut, born January 21st, 1934, Brooklyn, New York, died June 26, 2006, Boston, Massachusetts. American psychiatrist who was a pioneer researcher in the field of biological psychiatry.
Now, I want you guys to pay attention to their last names. Pay close attention to their last names. You know, this is the first guy, Kraepelin. He was over there in Germany, but now we're talking about here in America. Now, this is a country that will say Hitler was like Satan's firstborn. They go over there and do all their propaganda over there, but they bring all their scientists back over here and they erect these institutions. You know, NASA, pharmaceutical industry. A lot of these people are over the medical industry. But the man that they follow, this country wants everybody to believe that he was the worst of the worst. So there's something wrong there. There's a double standard. But come on, continue, brother.
He was widely known for his research paper, The Catecholamin Hypothesis of Affective Disorders, published in the American Journal of Psychiatry in 1965, which helped establish a biochemical basis for depression and other mood disorders. Schildkraut worked at the National Institute of Mental Health, Bethesda, Maryland, before joining the faculty of Harvard Medical School as an assistant professor of psychiatry in 1967. He was named full professor in 1974 and emeritus professor in 2004. From 1982 to 1992, he served as editor-in-chief of the Journal of Psychiatric Research. He also edited a book, Depression in the Spiritual in Modern Art, Homage to Miro, 1996, which explored the relationship between depression and creativity. Dr. Joseph Schildkraut presented a theory in a paper he wrote that mental problems might be caused by chemical imbalance. Though Schildkraut's theory was never proven, the psychiatric community had already decided that his theory was a plausible explanation for the many symptoms listed in the DSM.
Now, Dr. Joseph Schildkraut, he brought forth a theory. Now, this is something that everybody hears when it comes to mental disorders. Oh, it's a chemical imbalance of the brain. This is the guy that came up with that. It was a theory from the beginning. It was never proven. It was never a fact. And it's actually been disproven. But the people who knew that they could profit off of the drugs that they were already selling out there, they said, nah, brother, we going with this. And they took his theory and they ran with it. And it has become what it is today. Till this day, so-called 2016, 17, we're still hearing that this is the cause of a chemical imbalance when it's never been proven. So let's go to the next slide. This is the DSM-3. It was published in 1980. The DSM-3 was 494 pages long, and they jumped it from 145 diagnostic categories to now, in this book, 265 diagnostic categories. They just keep widening that net. And yeah, that's the year I was born. Yeah. I think there's notes on that, Brother Sean. Is that right? Read the first part of those notes.
Misogynistic personality disorder was taken out of the DSM-3 because the wife of Dr. Robert Spitzer, head of DSM-3, had tested positive for one of the symptoms.
Now that's actually called masochistic personality disorder. There was something that they were going to put into the DSM. And, you know, when they're huddling up and whatnot, you know, they're running tests and his wife volunteers. Comes to find out that she tests positive for one of the symptoms of this classification. And this brother's like, you know what, let's pull here, let's change that. We're going off right now. But it just goes to show that when they put these diagnostic categories in here, these symptoms, it's really just whatever they want to put into these books. It's not anything, there's never any blood test, DNA of any kind. It's whatever they choose to put into this book. And here's another example of it. Go ahead, brother.
Homosexuality considered a mental illness according to DSM-1 and 2. The psychiatric community buckled to political pressure after gay rights activists picketed their 1973 convention. It led to the removal of homosexuality from the DSM.
See, here in the truth, in Israel, we don't call it a diagnostic category. It's an abomination. Plain and simple. But to them, is it an illness or not? Like, how can you just remove it? You're supposed to put in the book what you believe is an illness. It's not supposed to be something that you can remove when you get political pressure. So is it real or is it fake? Of course, over here on this side of the fence, it's a complete abomination. You know. But let's go to the next slide, brother. This is the DSM-4. That's TR. It was published in 1994. They jumped from 265 diagnostics to 374 diagnostics. This is the first DSM that I ever saw when I first started waking up, because I personally have a cousin right now who is on these drugs, and he has to take them like every day. And I don't know if you've ever seen, like, it's like a calendar chart that they give the patients, where you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then it starts over on the next row. And in each of those little square boxes, there's a set of pills that that person has to take each day. And this is my cousin, he's on it. He was at one point vibrant, man. I mean, he was one of the best basketball players I've ever seen. This brother now, he's like a vegetable. And he's 2 years older than me. He's going to be 40 pretty soon. And, you know, it hurts to see that, because he's got spirits living in him. And it's only by ignorance that you can go into that. That you can sit down with these people and allow them to prescribe you these drugs that literally claim your life. It's like at that point, you're literally nothing but a vessel at that point. And whatever's operating you from the inside, you just at the whim of it. And he's actually to the point now where if he stops taking these pills, these drugs, he goes into seizures. So they literally have him captive, these spirits, at this point. So let's go to the next slide. This is the DSM-5. And the information that I have going later on in this presentation is largely coming from this book. I've sat down in the library and I've flipped through these pages. And I can't tell you how much of an abomination this book is. There's several things that I wanted to put into this presentation, but like I said, this thing would have been like 100 slides long. I chose one section that you're going to see later on because it really is the heavy hitter in this presentation when it comes to what they're trying to do to us specifically as Israelites. But you can start reading from the top, brother.
The DSM-5 was published on May 18, 2013, superseding the DSM-4 TR, which was published in 2000. The development of the new edition began with a conference in 1999 and proceeded with the formation of a task force in 2007, which developed and field tested a variety of new classifications. In most respects, DSM-5 is not greatly changed from DSM-4 TR. Notable changes include dropping Asperger's syndrome as a distinct classification, loss of subtype classifications for variant forms of schizophrenia, dropping the bereavement exclusion for depressive disorders, a revised treatment and naming of gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria, and removing the A2 criterion for post-traumatic stress disorder because its requirement for specific emotional reactions to trauma did not apply to combat veterans and first responders with PTSD. In addition, the DSM-5 is the first living document version of a DSM.
And I'm still trying to figure out what that means because we know with the living word, we use that terminology sometimes. The Bible is like, the living document of the DSM. I'm trying to figure out what that means. I'm still doing research on that. But go ahead, brother.
Supplemental materials and information will be added, updated, and available online. The multi-axle system used in previous versions of the DSM has been removed and replaced by 3 sections consisting of general information, diagnostic criteria, and emerging conditions.
Now, I couldn't get a clear number on how many diagnostic categories this book contains. It was really difficult for me to find. I'm starting to wonder if the only way I was able to figure that out was to get the book and count them all. And that would have been too time consuming, but I can guarantee you it's probably another 150 to 200 more diagnostics than the last book. But we can go to the next slide. What is a psychotropic drug? Let's get to the point of it. Go ahead, brother.
A psychiatric drug, pharmaceutical, or psychotropic is a chemical substance that changes brain function and results in alterations in perception, mood, or consciousness. These substances may be used recreationally, either legally or illegally, depending on the drug and the jurisdiction of the user, to purposefully alter one's consciousness or as entheogens for ritual, spiritual, or shamanic purposes, as a tool for studying or augmenting the mind. Some categories of psychoactive drugs which have medical therapeutic value are prescribed by medical doctors and other healthcare professionals. Examples include anesthetics, analgesics, hormonal preparations, anticonvulsant and anti-Parkinson drugs or drugs used for the treatment of neuropsychiatric disorders as hypnotic drugs, anxiolytic, and some stimulant medications used in ADHD, and some sleep disorders. There are also some psychoactive substances used in the detoxification and rehabilitation programs for psychiatric drug users. A psychiatric drug is nothing more than a licensed psychoactive drug.
So basically, a lot of the drugs that are illegal on the streets are components in some of these drugs that they're giving to people in the psychiatric facilities. You can kind of look at it as when it comes to snake bites, give you snake bite venom in conjunction with something else. to create the immunity, I guess. It's kind of similar in that. Like they put that stuff, not that I'm trying to help them out, but basically they put that stuff in there. Their excuses, they put it in there to wean you off of whatever it is that you're addicted to when it comes to rehabilitation centers. But now in the next few slides, we're going to go over some of these drugs. And, you know, Elder Rawchaa has been talking a lot about the side effects of these drugs. We're going to talk about these drugs, how they came about, and we're going to go through some of the side effects of these drugs and see what, you know, what they're really trying to do to your spirit. Let's go to the next slide. Chlorpromazine. Go ahead, brother.
Chlorpromazine, marketed under the trade name Thorazine.
And you see that they love to keep their Greek gods in their name. Brother Sean brought that out in his presentation on the demonic industry, I believe it was, where he was talking about Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams, how they took his name and used it for morphine. They're doing the same thing there with chlorpromazine. I believe this is the first psychiatric drug that they started marketing. Is there notes on that, brother?
No,
it's not. I think this is the first one that they came up with and started marketing. But go ahead, continue reading.
Under the trade names Thorazine and Largactil, among others, is an antipsychotic medication. It is primarily used to treat psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia. Other uses include the treatment of bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, nausea and vomiting, anxiety before surgery, and hiccups that do not improve following other measures.
Why would you need a pill to stop vomiting? Typically, when you're vomiting, is because your body is saying, what you put inside of here, we don't want it. Get it out of here. But they got people sitting down for the littlest things, such as vomiting. Now, go ahead, brother.
It can be given by mouth, by injection into a muscle or into a vein. Thorazine was released in 1954 and was previously used as an anti-parasite drug for pigs.
Now, it was previously used as an anti-parasite drug for pigs. Now, look at the year, 1954, right? That was a horrible time for Israel. You know, they were trying to feed us, you know, we was eating pork like crazy back then. You know, whether, especially if you was in prison, that was all they were feeding people was pork. Now, if this drug was an anti-parasite drug for pigs, then you can best believe that our ancestors who were eating these pigs were also ingesting this drug. Because the way the pigs are, you know, they digest pretty much whatever they eat. They digest, I would say, about a good 50% of it, even if it's their own waste. That's why the one thing about pigs, when these people like, I eat whatever I want, okay, but, you know, pigs eat their own waste and they digest it. You're eating that. If they're injecting the animal with this drug, you can best believe you're eating that too. Now look at the side effects. Dizziness, drowsy, anxiety, sleep problems, breast swelling or discharge, changes in menstrual periods, weight gain, swelling in hands or feet, dry mouth, stuffy nose, blurred vision, constipation, impotence or trouble having an orgasm. Now look at constipation there. The way your body works is when you put something in it that it doesn't want. Just think of alcohol when you drink a lot of beer. When a person drinks a lot of beer, they run into the bathroom a lot, right? It's because your body's trying to get rid of the alcohol. If you're not replenishing yourself with water, you're going to become dehydrated, and if you have waste in your intestines, you're going to become constipated. So if the side effect is constipation, it's because your body recognizes this thing, this drug, as an enemy, as a foreign invader. It wants to get it out of them. But these people list these side effects, and when you go in to sit down with them, They're going to say, okay, you're dealing with that. Well, we got another drug to give you. Next thing you know, you got a whole cabinet full. That's how the industry works. That's how they make their money, through the side effects. The next one is impotence, trouble having an orgasm. Now, this isn't an SSRI, but we're going to get into the SSRIs later on, and you're going to find out that the SSRIs are keenly manufactured to kill your ability to procreate. That's the main purpose of SSRIs. But let's get to the next drug. This is Valium. I'm pretty sure y'all heard of Valium, right? All right, go ahead, brother.
Valium. Diazepam, first marketed as Valium, is a medication of the benzodiazepine family that typically produces a calming effect. It is commonly used to treat a range of conditions, including anxiety, alcohol withdrawal syndrome, benzodiazepine withdrawal syndrome, muscle spasms, seizures, trouble sleeping, and restless leg syndrome. It may also be used to cause memory loss during certain medical procedures. It can be taken by mouth, inserted into the rectum, injected into muscle, or injected into a vein. When given into a vein, effects begin in 1 to 5 minutes and last up to an hour. By mouth, effects may take 40 minutes to begin.
Is there notes on that? Oh, go ahead, read the notes.
Valium was primarily prescribed to stressed out housewives. It was considered to be more dangerous and addictive than cocaine or meth. It was the most widely prescribed drug in the Western world in the 1980s, with 2.3 billion tablets sold in 1978 alone.
It was considered worse than cocaine or meth. And they were giving it to them. You stressed out? Your husband's working all the time. You got to, take care of the kids. Take some Valium. That's your answer. Look at the first side effect. False beliefs that cannot be changed by facts. Now, I want y'all to remember that. Because we're not going to literally go back to this slide because I don't want to get lost in the presentation, but please remember that. Valium, the first side effect that I came across, false beliefs that cannot be changed by facts, because this is going to come full circle later on. Fast heart beating, fast or irregular beating, feeling sad or empty, which is depression, feeling that others are watching you or controlling your behavior, paranoia. You see at the other side, it says incidents not known. Now, when you see incidents not known, that basically means that when they did the clinical trials on these drugs, right, in the early stages, they did not encounter any of these side effects. That doesn't mean that the side effects did not exist. The reason why they did not find these side effects, or rather the reason why they did not publish these side effects, is because the companies that run the clinical trials for safety are the same company that manufactured the drug in the first place. So if you're trying to make billions of dollars on this drug, of course you're going to dumb down your statistics on the harmful effects of the drug. You don't want to get a no when you bring this drug to the FDA. There was a time when it took around 4 years for these drugs to get approval for safety and sold into the markets. And I can't think of the name. There's a bill that was passed that allows the FDA, and I think George Bush was the one that did this. It's allowed to speed the processing time of these drugs to get them into the markets faster. What that had did, it cut down the time from 4 years to now around 6 months. They can get these drugs on the markets. So that's what it means when it says incidents not known. The people who are making the drug just decided not to report the side effects. And you see down at the bottom, loss of sexual ability, desire, drive, or performance. That's always going to be a consistent thing with these drugs. Let's go to the next one, brother. Prozac. Come on. Y'all heard of Prozac, right? All right. Come on. Now this one is an SSRI. This one is an SSRI, and it stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. But I have decided that SSRI stands for serious sexual repercussions involved. That's what it means as far as I'm concerned. But let's go ahead, brother.
Prozac is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressant. The way fluoxetine works is still not fully understood.
How you gonna put something out there? You're a drug dealer. You're a drug dealer. You know, if somebody's on the street pushing coke or whatever, he don't know how the drug gets somebody high. That sounds like the same thing to me. How can you not fully understand something that you're giving to somebody and calling yourself a doctor? Well, let's go ahead. We'll see what they say they think happens.
It is thought to positively affect communication between nerve cells in the central nervous system and or restore chemical balance in the brain. Prozac is used to treat major depressive disorders, bulimia nervosa, an eating disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and panic disorder. Prozac is sometimes used together with another medication called olanzapine, Zyprexa, to treat depression caused by bipolar disorders or manic depression. This combination is also used to treat depression after at least 2 other medications have been tried without successful treatment of the symptoms. Fluoxetine has also been used to treat premature ejaculation. It is taken by mouth.
Now, yeah, this drug, you see the side effects. I just put the key overall tone of the side effects of sexual dysfunction. That's going to be a primary side effect of SSRIs. All SSRIs, that's going to be a primary. You're not going to see that at the bottom of the list. So you see sexual dysfunction, loss, including loss of libido, anorgasmia, lack of vaginal lubrication, and erectile dysfunction is one of the most commonly encountered adverse effects of treatment with fluoxetine and other SSRIs. While early clinical trials suggested that relatively low rate of sexual dysfunction, because again, they're the people that made the drug in the first place are the ones who are running the clinical trials. It's a conflict of interest. There's supposed to be a neutral party that's doing that. But there isn't. The actual companies that make these drugs are the ones that run the clinical trials for safety. So it says, while early clinical trials suggest that a relatively low rate of sexual dysfunction, more recent studies in which the investigators actively inquires about the sexual problem suggests that the incidence is greater than 70%. So that means you got like really 3/4 at the minimum of people who take these drugs are going to have sexual dysfunction as a side effect. Symptoms of sexual dysfunction have been reported to persist after discontinuing SSRIs, although this is thought to be occasional. So even after you don't want to take the drug anymore, what you put into your system has altered you to the point where you're not on the list of people who can procreate anymore. You just out of that group. Now, is there notes on that?
Yeah, there's some notes on that.
Go ahead.
Prozac is primarily prescribed for depression. There have been over 3.9 million adverse events on Prozac alone.
3.9 million adverse effects on that drug alone. SSRIs, man. Now let's go look at the actual list of side effects and see how big the side effect list is for this. Look at that. Everything under the sun. This drug got more side effects than the number in some people's credit score. Hives, itching, or skin rash, inability to sit still, restlessness. Then the least common. And look down there all the way at the bottom of the third column in black. It says depression. That's what the drug was supposed to be given to you for. It's to treat that. How is that going to be a side effect? So there's no point to this. There's definitely an agenda for pushing these drugs that have nothing to do with your health, physical, mental. In any way, do these drugs have anything to do with your health? So let's go to the next slide. Zoloft. This is another SSRI. Come on.
Sertraline, trade names Zoloft and others, is an antidepressant of the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor class. It was introduced to the market by Pfizer in 1991. Sertraline is primarily prescribed for major depressive disorder in adult outpatients, as well as obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, and social anxiety disorder in both adults and children. In 2013, it was the most prescribed antidepressant and second most prescribed psychiatric medication after alprazolam on the U.S. retail market with over 41 million prescriptions. Differences with other newer antidepressants are subtle and mostly confined to side effects. It has a similar tolerability profile to other SSRIs, with the types of adverse events usually including diarrhea, nausea, and sexual dysfunction.
There it is. Go ahead.
The incidence of diarrhea was higher with sertraline, especially when prescribed at higher doses in comparison to other SSRIs.
See, when you take something, whether it's a pill or it's food, something that gives you diarrhea, it's because your body can't digest it. You put things into your body, if it can't digest it, the thing is going to sit there. It's going to clog up the channel of food that you may have before. It's going to interfere with what you have that was in there prior to it. And the food is actually going to, let's stick with this pill, is going to begin to ferment inside of you. It's going to create, the gas. Everybody in here done experienced it before. It's going to create all the symptoms of diarrhea, and it's because your body literally can't break it down. And just as a side note, I tell people this on the streets when the street preaching. It's pretty much the same thing with people who eat pork. At minimum, it takes you like a minimum of like 6 hours just to digest a few slices of bacon. People don't understand the level of oxidation created within the body when you eat something that takes that long to digest. It's going to stay there, and because it's taking that long because your body's having difficulty digesting it, it's going to begin to ferment. Because of the oxidation, your body is going to create a lot of free radicals, which are key contributors to cancer and diabetes. And then you got a whole list of ailments after that. But this is just another drug that adds to that problem. Now you see the side effects, more common: decreased sexual desire or ability, failure to discharge semen in men. Less common or rare, aggressive reaction, breast tenderness or enlargement, confusion, convulsions, diarrhea, drowsiness, dryness of the mouth, fast talk, and excited feelings or actions that are out of control, fever, inability to sit still, increase in the body movements, increased sweating, increased thirst. So this drug has your body in all kinds of wax. Is there any notes on that? No notes? All right, so these drugs, I think this is the last drug that's on my list of drugs. These drugs are some of the more popular drugs that have been out there in the market. And many of our people, really in a lot of ways is Hebrews and Gentiles alike are all caught up on this. But many of our people are on this. Now, we're going to go, let me see the next slide. Yeah, the Rosenhan experiment. How many of you, by a show of hand, have heard of the Rosenhan experiment? Nobody. That's good, because you guys are going to love this. This is an experiment that was taken by this guy, David Rosenhan. I believe that's a Jewish name, right? It sounds Jewish. David Rosenhan. He was a psychologist. He hated the psychiatric industry for the same reason I do. And he believed that psychology was actually the way to actually healing people when you take into account their environment, their upbringing, to treat the person. But this is, you got some? Oh. But this is the experiment that he ran on the psychiatric industry covertly without them understanding, without them knowing. Go ahead, brother.
The Rosenhan experiment was a famous experiment done in order to determine the validity of psychiatric diagnosis conducted by psychologist David Rosenhan, a Stanford University professor, and published by the journal Science in 1973 under the title On Being Sane in Insane Places. The study is considered an important and influential criticism of psychiatric diagnosis. It was while listening to one of R.D. Laing's lectures that Rosenhan wondered if there was a way in which the reliability of psychiatric diagnosis could be tested experimentally. Rosenhan's study was done in two parts. The first part involved the use of healthy associates or pseudo-patients, 3 women and 5 men, including Rosenhan himself, who briefly feigned auditory hallucinations in an attempt to gain admissions to 12 different psychiatric hospitals in 5 different states and various locations in the United States.
So they faked illnesses. Remember, I told you, you can just, what if you're lying? It's easy to get access to these facilities, at that time anyway, but it's easy to sit down with these doctors and get pills. Even if you just, say maybe you're just a druggie, you just wanted the pills. It's easy to get them. But they faked illnesses to gain access to these facilities. Now let's see what happened.
All were admitted and diagnosed with psychiatric disorders. After admission, the pseudo-patients acted normally and told staff that they felt fine and had no longer experienced any additional hallucinations.
So soon as they got in, they said, you know what, I'm good. I don't know what happened. Maybe I just shook it off, but I'm good. I'm not hallucinating anymore. Come on.
All were forced to admit to having a mental illness and agreed to take antipsychotic drugs as a condition of their release. So
these hospitals, they were upset. They was like, listen, man, y'all wasting our time. We're not going to let you leave unless you sign this release form saying that there's something wrong with you. You got schizophrenia or something. You're not leaving unless you sign this. And you're taking some of these drugs. We're going to write you a prescription. We're going to give you these boxes. And you're going to take these drugs. We're going to have to do all of this before we let you leave. Come on.
The average time that the patient spent in the hospital was 19 days. All but one were diagnosed with schizophrenia in remission before their release.
Now, they never actually took the drugs, but they took them with them, but they never actually swallowed them. And so, yeah, they basically proved their point that they were able to get in there and not be detected. Now, let's go to the next slide and get some more on it. Go ahead.
The second part of this study involved an offended hospital administration challenging Rosenhan to send pseudo-patients to his facility, whom its staff would then detect. So
this is a hospital that they infiltrated at first. And, they got in, got out. The hospital realized they couldn't detect them. They couldn't detect them as insane. They were normal. They couldn't tell the difference between sane and insane. So the doctors, the nurses, they're all upset. They called up Dr. Rosenhan. Nah, send them back. Send them back. We're going to do this over. We want round 2. We'll detect them this time. So let's see what they did.
Rosenhan agreed, and in the following weeks, out of 193 new patients, the staff identified 41 as potential pseudo-patients.
So they identified people, but let's see who they identified.
With 19 of these receiving suspicion from at least one psychiatrist and one other staff member. In fact, Rosenhan had sent no one to the hospital.
He never sent anybody. They asked for round 2, and I could just see this. Just imagine the paranoia that must have took place. I could see Rosenhan sitting at his desk. They call him up on his phone. He's like, yeah, you want round 2? Okay, let me get like a couple days just to round everybody up. I'm going to send them in, and I'll let you know when you can begin. A couple days later, okay, you can begin. He just clicks the phone. He never sent anybody into the facilities. So once the doctors realize, okay, they're in, and they can start looking, they're looking at their own patients, people who were really wheeled in for something that they were dealing with. And they was looking at yoking up people. Now you faking, you faking, you faking. And these people were really admitted in for whatever they were dealing with. So he played them out. He showed that you cannot tell the difference based on their science. But there's more on this. It just gets funnier and funnier. I couldn't stop laughing when I first read this. Go ahead, brother.
The study concluded, it is clear that we cannot distinguish the sane from the insane in psychiatric hospitals, and also illustrated the dangers of dehumanization and labeling in psychiatric institutions. It suggested that the use of community mental health facilities, which concentrated on specific problems and behaviors rather than psychiatric labels, might be a solution, and recommended education to make psychiatric workers more aware of the social psychology of their facilities.
See, the problem when you diagnose these people, they have social stigmas now. Like, it's everybody who finds out somebody's taking Xanax or something, it's like, all right, that brother's, I'm just gonna be nice to him no matter what. All of a sudden, it's just people just operating in the fruits of the spirit around this brother. Seemingly, like it's just like they just practicing it without knowing it because they don't want to offend this brother because they don't know what he's gonna do. They don't know if he's gonna snap or what. And that's just gonna be a stamp over his forehead. It's crazy from then on for something that he might not even be dealing with. This brother is that's his story till he dies. But let's see the rest. This is the craziest part to me.
Despite constantly and openly taking extensive notes on the behavior of the staff and other patients, none of the pseudo-patients were identified as imposters by the hospital staff, although many of the other psychiatric patients seem to be able to correctly identify them as imposters.
See, the actual patients, they sitting there, and you just imagine they're across the table from them, and they're like, I know there's something wrong with me. But brother, you're not one of us. You don't belong here. Something is up. They were able to detect it, but the nurses couldn't. Let's get more on that.
In the first 3 hospitalizations, 35 of the total of 118 patients expressed a suspicion that the pseudo-patients were sane, with some suggesting that the patients were researchers or journalists investigating the hospital.
Now, think of this. This is 35 of the 118 patients expressed this suspicion. Now, these are people that are taking these drugs, that have these spirits infiltrating them at numbers. So it's really it's probably really the spirits that infiltrated them. That's like, nah, brother. You know, you ain't, before you came in, this was home sweet home. But now you sitting here, there's a disturbance here. You know, you don't necessarily belong here. Because really, if they weren't on those pills, they shouldn't have been able to detect them either. Because the nurses couldn't. The nurses ain't on them pills. So it's really what's been done to those patients that allowed them to say, okay, this brother's not like us. All right, let's get more on that.
Hospital notes indicated that staff interpreted much of the pseudo-patient's behavior in terms of mental illness.
Watch this. Go ahead.
For example, one nurse labeled the note-taking of one pseudo-patient as writing behavior.
As writing behavior. So if you're sitting down jotting, the brother's just sitting, just picture him sitting in the cafeteria. And he's sitting down taking notes in a note and pad, and he's examining everything. Okay, this is how it operates in here, and this and that and the other. He just completely infiltrated successfully, and he's taking notes. The nurse over here is looking at this brother saying, he's exhibiting writing behavior. You can't even write anymore without having a mental diagnostic thrown on you. This is how bad it is in these facilities. And it's laughable at their education that they can sit there and not tell that this brother has just infiltrated their facility and is literally taking notes and collecting intel to go back to finish the study. Go ahead, brother.
And considered it pathological. The patient's normal biographies were recast in hospital records along the lines of what was expected of schizophrenics by the then dominant theories of its theology.
Right. That's the Rosenhan experiment, and there's more to it. But next we're going to go to, I believe this is schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. And this is taken straight from the delusional section of the DSM-5. I just copied it word for word. And this is in the section of schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders under the subsection delusions. And we're going to find out that they're actually talking about us. This is specifically about us. Go ahead, brother.
Delusions are fixed beliefs that are not amenable to change in light of conflicting evidence. Their content may include a variety of themes: persecutory, referential, religious, grandiose. Persecutory delusions, belief that one is going to be harmed, harassed, and so forth by an individual, organization, or other group, are most common.
Now, that's pretty much the entire Black and Hispanic community. That's pretty much the entire Black and Hispanic community. Now, I guess the Black Panthers were delusional for feeling like they had the need to defend their homes, to perform self-defense, because the cops was coming into their areas, hurting us. I guess they were delusional for that. You know, when we're out in the streets talking about coming out of Psalms 83, I guess that's us right there. All these nations that are round about us, I guess that's us right there, right? Let's get referential delusions.
Referential delusions, belief that certain gestures, comments, environmental cues, and so forth are directed at oneself, are also common.
Now, this is something that I think takes place probably early on in the awakening process. And this is, you know, you read the scriptures and there's angels helping people all the time, and, you know, you're looking around and people saying certain things to you. You're taking for more than what it is, certain words, messages. We know what the scripture says on this stuff. This stuff, the Most High is helping us every day. But if we go around voicing this stuff to people, we are candidates for that category. We're candidates for that category. And also, you really got to watch what you say to people when it comes to that, because if you're off, like in the beginning, I remember I was on the phone with my mother telling her Nibiru was coming next month. Now, she doesn't know everything that I know now, but she remembers that. You know, she remembers that conversation. She remembers how I was, no pork, this and that and the other, follow the law, this and that. She remembers all of that stuff. That's why it's, when you first wake up, you're like an arrow shot from a strong bow with no feathers on the end. You're all over the place. We got to calm down when we first wake up. We got to seek the elders, get some understanding, sit down, take a deep breath. Next thing you know, you're going to think, you're going to have your mother thinking about Anunnaki for no reason. Let's go to grandiose delusions.
Grandiose delusions when an individual believes that he or she has exceptional abilities, wealth, or fame.
Now, this right here is definitely not Baptist. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, none of them are getting linked up for these things. When an individual believes that he or she has exceptional abilities, where does the Holy Spirit reside? In Israel. Who is the salt of the earth? Israel. You know, we're the light to the Gentiles. You know, we believe we have more talent than any other nation on the face of this earth. Facts. Yeah, I'm delusional. I need Zoloft or something. You know? They about to give me Zoloft. Now, when an individual believes that he or she has exceptional wealth, whose names are written on the gates of the kingdom? Israel. You know, Israel was like before 70 AD, that's where all the money was. That belonged to us. We come from royal blood. Fame. We come from the greatest race of people that ever walked the face of this earth. So I guess I'm suffering from grandiose delusion. You know? I guess I need Zolo. Now, erotomanic delusions, I was actually going to take out of that. But at the first night of Feast of Dedication, I was showing it to Brother Aaron, Deacon Aaron. And he actually showed me how that does fit. When an individual believes falsely that another person is in love with him or her, are also seen. Now, there's a lot of people that believe in Jesus. There's a lot of people that believe in the God of the Tetragrammaton. But there's not many people that believe in Yeshua and his father Ahiah. We say that they love us, you know, that they're protecting us, that there's a way that we can be hedged by them. We would fall into that category. Go to nihilistic delusions, Brother Sean.
Nihilistic delusions involve the conviction that a major catastrophe will occur. You can't even prophesy no more. So when you in the streets coming out of Revelations 18, Jeremiah 50 and all that, Ezra's, somebody just gonna pop out the bushes with some Zoloft. Here, brother, you know, you need a little bit of that. You know, come to the clinic. And somatic delusions. Go ahead, brother. Somatic delusions focus on preoccupations regarding health and organ function.
I'm finished. Yeah, they coming after all of them. You can't even be healthy no more. Can't even be healthy no more. Let's go to the next one, brother.
Delusions are deemed bizarre if they are clearly implausible and not understandable to sane culture peers and do not derive from ordinary life experiences.
So that means Sonetta and all them think we're delusional. They're our same culture peers. So they all will be on the outside looking at us. Go ahead, brother.
An example of a non-bizarre delusion is the belief that one is under surveillance by the police despite a lack of convincing evidence.
Now this is taken straight from the book. So, you know, we know that we know that they're coming after us. We know about Esau and his plans. We read the book of Obadiah. We read the curses. But if we voice this, we're candidates. We're just candidates by default of following the scriptures without religious influence. Go ahead, brother.
Delusions that express a loss of control over mind or body are generally considered to be bizarre. These include the belief that one's thoughts have been removed by some outside force. Thought withdrawal.
Thought withdrawal, the renewing of your mind. Now, you can't keep the commandments? I can't do that without being classified under thought withdrawal? I can't ask the Most High to plant my feet where He want them to go? Go ahead, read that next one.
That alien thoughts have been put into one's mind. Thought insertion.
Come on.
Or that one's body or actions are being acted on or manipulated by some outside force. Delusion of control.
Now, there should be so many scriptures running through your heads as you see this, of our ancestors that have poured their hearts out into the pages. And these brothers, I forgot to mention that this entire industry, the psychiatric industry, was set up by Masons and Jesuits. Pretty much every high-ranking Mason has the King James Bible on their desk. So they know this book. And I've always wondered, why do they have that book? It's probably this. It's probably for this moment, for the producing of these books. Now let's not play games here. They know, we know where the word alien comes from. Now any regular person reading that is going to think about the little green man. But we see how this all lines up with us. We know that they're talking about the Alahaya. We understand it. So we see this, we're not going to play dumb with it. We know that they're gunning for us. We know that this is a direct target at us because, again, Baptists are not being linked up for this stuff. Catholics are not being linked up for this. Jehovah's Witnesses are not being linked up. Seventh-day Adventists, no false religion is going to be linked up under this because they're where Satan wants them to be anyway. We're the only people on this planet that will qualify for each and every last one of these, diagnostics. So that begs the question, when we read into Matthew early on, and I was like, and Yeshaya was talking about, brother will turn over brother to death, father, child, children, parents, and so forth. Christ is talking about family turning over each other. In a situation like this, the only one that would make the call would really be family and friends, the people closest to you. So let's read the next slide. What if they're just trying to help? What if it's out of their love for you that they turn you over to death? What if it, and brothers shall deliver up brother to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death? It really could be, and me and Aaron was talking, we think that's more realistic than, your father just yoking you up and throwing you in the back of a cop car. We think their love for us is actually more of a realistic thing. So, so how could that be? Again, we go to these, we just following the scriptures. By default, we fall into these categories. And we just trying our best to operate in the fruits of the Spirit. We trying to teach our parents, show them, the proper way to walk. These are the changes I made, Mom and Dad. Just, let me show something to you. Next thing you know, they're on the phone like something. My son is completely different than he's ever been. This is not my son. I don't recognize him. I didn't give birth to him. He looks the same, but he's completely different. Maybe there's something some specialists we need to talk to. They get on the phone with somebody, and they're sitting down talking with, somebody who looks like one of the agents from the Matrix, pad and pen, just giving them all this information. And then they start contacting. Your phone is just ringing for no reason. But I'm going to show you why I say this, why I say that it could be a situation. I'm going to say it could be a situation chiefly that comes down through religion. I'm going to show you how. And then go to the next slide. Now, this verse doesn't really, in the context of this verse, it doesn't really have anything to do with the presentation, but I stumbled across something accidentally, completely accidentally, in the midst of my research. Now, this is Jude 1:16. It says, these are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts. In their mouth speaketh great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. Okay. Now, I stumbled across the same verse in the Bible that I've been reading my entire life up until I woke up, the New World Translation of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now let's read the same exact verse from their Bible. These men are murmurers, complainers about their lot in life, following their own desires, and their mouth make grandiose boasts, while they are flattering others to their own benefit. Can you go back to the previous slide? Deacon Shamal, can you get me the word for swelling in the Strong's? That's Jude 1:16. Swelling, yeah.
This is the Greek word for the word swelling, G5246. And the word is hypergonkos. To bulge over, vigorously, insolent, great swelling.
Can you get the bottom part of that? Is there any more at the bottom?
Want me to go to blue?
No, that's it. That's enough on that, really. That's enough on that. Go back to the next verse, the next slide. Where it says grandiose boasts, there's plenty, based on the Strong's definition, there's several words they could have used to put there. But they chose grandiose. I can tell you as a fact, there's 80 to 85% of Jehovah's Witnesses never use that word. They never use that term. They don't even know what it means. But whenever you come up in face to face with somebody who either uses the New World Translation or the NIV, they tell you that they switched from the King James because it was easier to read. They tell you they went to these other Bibles. Oh, it's easier to read. You don't have to deal with thee, thou, thy, this and that. But you got words in the book that you can pronounce grandiose, but you can't pronounce thee and thy. Are you serious? So I can definitely see these are the same people, the Masons. They're the ones that translated this Bible, this version of the Bible. They're the same people that have their hands all over the psychiatric and medical industry, and the same people that have their hands all over these false doctrines. I can understand Hosea 2:16, where it says, in that day thou shalt call me Ishi and no more Baali. In their Bible, in this Bible, it says, thou shalt call me my husband, and thou shalt no longer call me my master. If you look in the Strong's, you're going to see both of those terms there. So I can understand why they did that. You going off. You know, you're wrong. You're just trying to hide those two names. But I can at least understand it because they're in the Strong's definition. But this isn't even there. They just put it there. They specifically put that there. So I can see them giving a lesson where they send in certain doctrinal points, talking about psychology, people who have left the faith, as they like to say. And this isn't just the Jehovah's Witnesses; these are all these religions. I can see them sending in messages through their pastors, their elders, that when we as Israelites go to our families and start, just teaching them about the Bible and saying certain things that will have us fall into the categories on that other slide, it will trigger those lessons where they will be reminded of certain verses like this. So that's pretty much what I got out of that. And I ran into this completely by accident. Completely by accident. How much? 40 minutes? Okay. Okay, so just quick background on how I got that. I was looking over a video from my old religion. They're talking about people that left. And in the video, they like to talk to their family about how to deal with family members that leave. So I like to keep up on what they're teaching my family so that I'm not blindsided by anything. And I came up across a scripture in Psalms 97:10. And in there, in the King James, it's supposed to say, it says saints, but in their Bible it says loyal ones. What I realized is that in the Old Testament, they changed all the verses that say saints to loyal ones. And in the New Testament, it's holy ones. I'm trying to research why they distinguish the difference between the two, holy ones and loyal ones. But in Jude, I just decided to read the whole verse, and I just bumped into that after I had already put all the slides together. So we could go to the next slide. We're going to skim through this because I'm running out of time. But this is actually a website that I just copied and put in here. It's about the RFID system, psychiatric and substance abuse hospitals. This is by GAO-RFID, G-A-O-RFID. If you type this in to your search engine, you're going to see a whole bunch of things about this company that makes RFID technology. And when they're planning to implement their technology into the psychiatric and substance abuse facilities, to have patients tracked with RFID technology, those who enter in, and they haven't actually begun this yet. They're not coming out and saying that they're implantable devices, but they are on record saying that they're excited about the opportunity to use their technology for these reasons. And for our people who get caught up in this, this is why it's really important to not be an individualite in the near future. It's really important to not be just a YouTube watcher, a single, just a solo brother or sister that just wants to sit around and think that you're going to take some information from every other camp. Because when they really start bringing down the hammer, when Israel really when the Most High starts the purging process at his house, if you don't have a support system, if you don't have people to pray for you in your times of trials and distress, you could very well end up being one of these people that are in here, linked up with this situation. Them trying to shoot you up with implantable RFID technology and so forth. So let's just go to the skip that slide. Yeah, this is about patient tracking, access control. This is just all their missions, straight off of their website. Go to the next slide. And this is talking about inventory management, medical administrations, different things. I mean, when you see it on the video, you can pause it and look it over for yourself. Let's go to the next slide. And that's their closing statements. They're integrating their solution with the healthcare system. So the healthcare system is involved in this. And let's go to the next slide. But ye, this is Job 13:4. But ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value. And it's the truth. I mean, they have no value to the Most High or to us or to any of our temples. All they do is lie. That's all they're offspring of the fathers of lies, of the father of lies. But that's part one. And you said 40 minutes? 40 minutes. I'm trying to see if I have time to go through all of it. Okay, let's go to part two. This is part two. This is what the Most High had in place from the beginning. Genesis 1:29. The Most High said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. These foods within the confines of this scripture, the identifiers, being foods with seeds, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, grains, nuts. These are the foods that do nothing but positive for your blood. You don't need to take pills or any of these things that these liars, these physicians of no value, try to prescribe you to leave your temple vulnerable for whatever the adversary wants to do to you. This is what the Most High had in place from the beginning. So the first thing that we're going to go into is we're going to talk about the difference between, we're going to talk about what pH means for the body. Acid and alkaline. How many people by a show of hands understand pretty thoroughly how to explain what happens when your body is overly acidic? Okay, we got a few. We got a few. That's good. We need more hands in that. We need more hands in that. We need more hands. Let's go to the next slide, and we're going to talk about, this is the book that I use for this part. I liked it because it's pretty structural in its explanation of pH in regards to the body when talking about foods. Let's go to the next slide. You can start reading, brother.
The term pH was originally defined in 1909 by Søren Peter Lauritz Sørensen, a Danish biochemist, literally meaning potential for hydrogen. pH is used to indicate the concentration of hydrogen ions in a fluid. The degree of acidity is determined by the amount of free hydrogen ions in a solution. The more hydrogen ions there are present, the more acidic the solution will be. Therefore, by showing the concentration of hydrogen ions, pH also indicates whether a fluid or compound is acidic, alkaline, or neutral. pH is measured on a scale of 0 to 14. A measurement of 7 is neutral. In other words, it is neither acidic nor alkaline. Any measurement lower than 7 is considered acidic, and any measurement higher than 7 is considered alkaline. As concentrations of hydrogen ions increase in a substance, so does the acidic level. The pH or acid-base status of a substance is determined by the substance's concentration for hydrogen ions, which are simply protons, positively charged particles. By definition, an acid is a substance that gives off hydrogen ions, while its opposite, a base, also known as an alkali, is a substance that accepts hydrogen ions. All acids in the body contain hydrogen ions in varying concentrations, with stronger acids having a greater concentration of hydrogen ions than weaker acids. The hydrogen ion is unstable and very reactive. Specifically, it seeks to react with a negatively charged molecule. So excess hydrogen ions can be thought as hiding in the body, ready to react with other molecules. These hydrogen ions, once they become attached to various proteins, alter protein structure or denature it. This is precisely how hydrochloric acid in the stomach aids in the digestion of protein.
Now, I read it that, I made that part in the paragraph red because when I was reading it, for some reason I just started thinking about the body of Christ. And I don't know if you caught that, but it says the hydrogen ion is unstable and very reactive. It specifically seeks to react with a negatively charged molecule. And it makes me think of like people who may come into the body and, you know, they may not have the humility that one would seek for someone in a position of leadership. They may not be able to take counsel for whatever reason. They may not leave right away, but they may operate for a little bit and seek to gather those. We had a situation like that in Jersey where, you know, brothers will go to other brothers who I'm not speaking on this situation, I'm speaking of in general. You may have that brother who is seeking people who, I'm going to use the term here, who are negatively charged, who are dealing with things to try and sway them to their side. It says, so excess hydrogen ions can be thought as hiding in the body, ready to react with other molecules. So they're looking for things to feed off of. You know, they're looking for that negative energy. Yeah, the elder said that to you. You know, come over here and talk to this. I'm having Bible studies at my crib. You know, let's go over these certain things. These hydrogen ions, once they become attached to various proteins, alter the protein structure or denature it. So next thing you know, they're completely out of the body and they're making videos on YouTube just dissing G.O.C.C. You know, Elder Rawchaa is this and that, Elder Gabar is this and that. That's what I was thinking about when I read that. But yeah, we could go to the next slide. Your body wants to be alkaline.
Various multi-layered psychological mechanisms act to ensure that the pH values of the cells, fluids, tissues, and organs are properly maintained. They do so by neutralizing and eliminating excess acid buildup. First, there are several layered buffer systems within the cells and the blood that work to neutralize or buffer acid byproducts. These buffer systems, known as bicarbonate, phosphate, and protein buffer systems, help keep the cells and blood in an alkaline state. The primary organs that work to eliminate acid buildup in the body are the kidneys and the lungs, followed to a lesser extent by the skin. Although some of these organs play a more significant role than others, they are all engaged in the important activity of maintaining internal alkalinity.
I hope at least most of you watched Deacon Shamal's lesson on doorways to the temple. It was a beautiful lesson, and the brother this is pretty much land backing off of some of the things that he went into. This is pretty much land backing off of some of the things he went into. And we're going to focus on the kidneys for a little bit. You can go ahead and read that, Sean.
The kidneys help regulate acid-alkaline balance of the bloodstream by eliminating solid acids, also known as fixed acids, especially sulfuric and uric acid, through urination. When the levels of such acids become excessive, the kidneys excrete increased levels of hydrogen ions. This process acts as a filtering mechanism that dilutes the acids and moves them out of the bloodstream to be eliminated by the urine. In its excretion of acids, the kidneys utilize various alkali reserve compounds. And if these are not available from the diet, the body calls upon the alkali reserves stored in the watery layer around the bone and in the bone itself. At times, even the muscles are affected as muscle tissue is broken down to release an alkalizing amino acid called glutamine, which is used by the body in its pH recovery rescue process.
So this is basically telling you why so many people have kidney failure, so many people have, various organ failures, osteoporosis of the bones, arthritis, and so forth. When you bring in so much of that acid into your body, you're asking your kidneys it's like asking a baby to lift a car. It can't do it. So you need to help it. You need to help your kidneys. And your kidneys are begging you to give them the reinforcements that they need through the diet, through the food. If you're not eating alkaline food, your kidneys are going to have no choice but to steal the alkali reserves from your bones, from your muscles, from your other organs. Pancreas, liver is not all listed here, but it starts taking it from places all over your body. And it leads to, you're basically creating the environment where disease can come in and flourish. That's basically what you're doing. In order for someone to come down with something like cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, or any of these things, they first have to create the environment within themselves in order for those diseases to take hold. That's why the saying, you are what you eat, is the oldest saying I can think of. And it's the truth. It's the truest saying. when it comes to eating, when it comes to health, you are what you eat. Now, if you are constantly eating alkaline foods, your kidneys are going to be able to take from that diet and replenish the times that you put acid into your body, so that it can, bring the pH where it needs to be. Go ahead, next slide, brother. All right, this is basically breaking down how the lungs work. Start in the third paragraph with the lungs.
The lungs also work to keep the body's pH levels balanced by eliminating volatile gas-formed acids. As you breathe, the carbon dioxide produced through metabolic processes inside the body combines with water in the blood. This combination produces carbonic acid, which the lungs then eliminate as part of the process of respiration, helping to keep overall acidity in check.
One telltale sign.
One telltale sign that the body is becoming over-acidic is increased respiratory rate. The skin, through its sweat glands, is the final organ responsible for eliminating acids. The skin accomplishes this through perspiration, which helps to flush acids out of the body. It is interesting to note that since increased levels of acids contained in sweat can produce a strong smell, body odor produced by perspiration can be a strong indication of a state of over-acidity.
So if you're musky, you know what that means. You know what that means. Not to embarrass anybody, but body odor literally means that you're dealing with acid. Now, what both of those two paragraphs were basically saying is that we need to start working out more often. We need exercise. We need the lungs to be able to get rid of that acid, and we need to sweat. We need to work out on a regular basis, because if we don't, we're just going to ask the kidneys to do everything, and the kidneys cannot do everything. There's three parts to it. It's the kidneys, the lungs, and the skin. If they're not working together, you can't be physically fit. You cannot be physically fit. If you're not physically fit, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to be mentally fit. And if you're not mentally fit, more than likely you could forget about being spiritually fit. So they all work in harmony. Go to the next slide, brother. All right, so this is talking about the effects of low-grade metabolic acidosis. When you have too much acid, so much that the kidneys just pretty much are starting to give up on you. You know, they can't really deal with the situation anymore, and the acid is basically taking over, and you've created a situation where disease can come in and flourish. So we're not going to read all of that. Let's go to the next slide. There's more on there. I'll just pick out a couple. Decreased efficiency of cellular energy production, causing impaired cellular function, eventually impaired organ function, because the organs are made of cells. If the cells don't get what they need, then your organs aren't going to be able to function right. Disrupted balance of intestinal bacteria with related digestive problems. That's another side effect. Go to the next slide, brother. And these are the reduced size of the brain pools and the brain's pool of energy reserves, causing weakened mental capacity. So that right there tells you that a lot of times when people end up in these doctor's office and these psychiatrist's office, it's because of their food diet. Primarily. It's primarily caused by that. So what we're going to go into next, we're going to talk about herbs, because that's what was talked about at Genesis. Go to the next slide. And I used this book. This is a brother that studied heavily Dr. Sebi's work, and he's a university graduate who is also a nutritionist of his own, and he has some very interesting information in his book. I've purchased many of his herbs myself. I began mixing them, and I'm trying them out on myself, and I have some good results. Let's go to the next slide. Who's heard of burdock root? All right, a lot of you. Good. Because this should be basic stuff for us. We should be able to explain pH functions, the difference between an alkaline and an acidic body. We should be able to pick out herbs and understand what heals us. Now I'm going to just read straight through this. It says the root is also known as burdana. Burdock root is a diuretic, blood cleanser, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-fungus, anti-cancer, antiviral, antibacterial herb. Many of burdock root's medicinal properties are attributed to its wide array of chemical compounds, which include inulin, mucilage, essential oil, volatile oil, alkaloids, glycosides, resin, and tannins. Burdock has been used in traditional medicine to treat conditions such as eczema, acne, psoriasis, because it promotes the removal of toxins from the skin. It is also a diuretic used to promote urination and stimulate kidney function and repair. A primary use of burdock root is as a blood purifier and liver tonic to restore liver function and health. So after you having your wine, you definitely want to have a cup of this. All right? This is something that this is like a basic herb right here. This is something that you could get this off of Amazon. I had some of this morning. It's a really good herb. Let's go to the next slide. And it's in Africa. This is what our ancestors dealt with. Now this is blue vervain. This is a beautiful herb. I love it. Blue vervain has diuretic, anti-malaria, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial properties. Blue vervain has been used in traditional medicine as a female tonic to treat menstrual cramps and as an emmenagogue to increase milk production in women who are breastfeeding. Many primary uses of blue vervain is to treat nervous disorders, including stress, anxiety, and restlessness. So that's a contrary to the pills that they were trying to push on people. This has no side effects. No side effects. We had a lot of babies in Jersey. Where's Tazarab? You texting your wife out? Tell them to get some of this? tell your wife to get some of that, man. All sisters breastfeeding and nursing children should be dealing with this in some form or fashion, because really, just look at it. It looks like a plant that the Most High just made for women. I see some sisters coming to the Passover looking just like this herb. This is a beautiful herb. And it originates here in North America, and the Gadites had their hands all over this. Let's go to the next slide, brother. This is Cascara sagrada. Now this is a herb that should be taken responsibly. It is for the cleaning of the colon. Cascara sagrada contains emodin, which has antiviral, anti-cancer property. Cascara sagrada is used primarily as a laxative and stimulates the peristaltic action of the intestines. This wave-like motion moves waste through the intestines. This property helps restore the proper tone and health of the intestines by pushing waste out of the diverticular pouches that develop in the intestinal wall. This helps restore the mucus lining and health of the intestine. Cascara sagrada has been used in traditional medicine to improve stomach, liver, and pancreas secretions and break up and remove gallstones from the gallbladder. It's native to West North Africa. Gadites had their hands on this. This is the medical caution. Do not use if you have developed diarrhea or abdominal pain, meaning don't be taking too much of it. Women who are pregnant or nursing are advised to avoid Cascara sagrada because it can induce labor. And lactating women can pass on the compound via breastfeeding. Not recommended for longer than 7 consecutive days. It is very important not to exceed recommended doses to avoid liver damage. Cascara sagrada has been shown to be safe and useful within recommended usage. So you want to use it responsibly. But when it comes to cleansing of the intestines, this is an herb that you might want to look at. Next slide. This is elderberry. You probably heard Dr. Sabi talk about this a lot. Elderberry has anti-inflammatory, antiviral, anti-influenza, anti-cancer properties. It is used to treat colds, flu, and allergies, and to remove mucus from the respiratory system. Sambucus nigra is most commonly used medicinally because it has been shown to be a non-toxic, while other species can be toxic. Sambucus nigra has been shown in studies to bind with the H1N1 virus and stop it from entering cells. So it's a protector. It's native to America, Africa, Asia, and Europe. So our ancestors definitely had their hands on this. Go to the next slide, brother. This is lavender, another beautiful herb. I'm sure many of you have heard of this. I don't know how many of you actually use this as tea. But lavender has antifungal, antibacterial, analgesic, anti-inflammatory, anti-insomnia, anticonvulsant, antispasmodic, anti-anxiety, and antidepressant properties. So this is another herb that counters the psychiatric drugs. This is what the Most High had in the beginning. Lavender is used in traditional medicines to treat restlessness, insomnia, nervousness, depression. Lavender is used for migraines, nerve pain, and joint pain. It is also used to reverse abdominal swelling from gas, upset stomach, nausea, loss of appetite, and vomiting. So instead of taking a pill for vomiting, like I said in the beginning, you could just take some lavender, you good. That's what the Most High had in place in the beginning. Origin of Africa, Canary Islands, Mediterranean, Asia, and India. Our ancestors definitely had their hands on it. Let's go to the next slide. Red clover. I love red clover. If you want to go to sleep, drink some red clover. Red clover has anti-cancer, diuretic, expectorant, and sedative, anti-inflammatory, and anti-atherosclerosis properties. Red clover is used for its estrogen properties to relieve menopausal symptoms. Red clover is a blood purifier used in the breakup and calcification in soft tissues and to clean the lymphatic system of lymph fluid waste. Cleaning the lymphatic system is just as important as cleaning your colon. When you look into do the research on the colon and the lymphatic system, you're going to realize that they both run hand in hand. That they're both together. Just group them up. Just group them up, because if you can't really clean one, you clean the colon, it's going to help the lymphatic system. You clean the lymphatic system, it's going to help the colon a little bit, but it's more important to deal with the colon. Origin of Northwest Africa and Asia. Next slide. Yellow dock root. This is a herb I took last night. I took that and red clover, actually. Yellow dock root has antioxidant, antimicrobial, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antipretic properties. Yellow dock stimulates bile production, aiding in the digestion of fat, and stimulates bowel movement to clear the digestive tract. Yellow dock has been used in traditional medicines as a blood purifier and liver and gallbladder cleanser, and to clean the lymphatic system. So this is a herb that would be nice to take, later in the evening after you don't had your food and all that. Take that before you go to bed. Get that lymphatic system cleaned up. This is another African herb, Western Asia and Europe. Go to the next slide. Sage. I love sage. Pretty sure you've heard of that. Sage has antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor, anti-diarrheal, anti-obesity properties. Sage has also been shown to reduce LDL cholesterol and raise HDL cholesterol, improving the HDL-LDL ratio. Sage is used in traditional medicine to improve memory, treat menopausal hot flashes, reduce gastrointestinal inflammation, nourish the pancreas, and treat diabetes. It's from the Mediterranean. Our ancestors had their hands on this. I make sage tea all the time. Let's go to the next slide. These are some of the foods that make your spirit say, Not going to read that, but go to grains. You heard of amaranth, right? Right? Fonio. By show of hands, who heard of fonio? None of you. Wow. You heard of cream of wheat? Okay. Cream of wheat is bad. But I brought it up. I brought it up because fonio tastes just like cream of wheat. That's actually a cereal that you might want to look at. You get that off of Amazon. I've had fonio a few times. This goes back to the Dogon. Even if you look at, it's a millet. If you look at millet in the Strongs, it's called Dokan. So, I don't know the connection between Dokan and Dogon, but they had their hands on it. Fonio goes back that far. Then you got Cometh in our bodies. We're the ones that are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Hemp seeds, pine nuts, sesame seeds. I was never a nut eater, so I like to make milk with this. We need to get more in the habit of making our own nut milk. We need to start doing this. Sister Vonnie used to do that. She used to go in with it. But we all need to be doing that. It should be a basic thing for all of us. It should be like second nature. We need to get in the habit of making our own milk. Let's go to the next slide, brother. I think we got like 2 more. Yeah, this is the last one. I mean, that's the second to the last one. I like this because it talks about the woman who dealt with physicians and then chose Christ afterwards. So this is Mark 5:25 through 29. It says, "And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years and has suffered many things from physicians and has spent all that she had and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse." If this isn't the entire medical industry, I don't know what it is. This is the whole industry right here. They don't do anything good for you. They just keep you in the middle of sick and dead so that you're consistently a customer. But when she had heard of Yeshua, came in the press behind and touched his garment. Person dealing with these pharmaceutical drugs, you got to get off these drugs and look for what Christ, that the Most High had due to creating in the beginning. Look at what he put in the earth. It's not going to be easy for you to find it. Like this woman had to come in behind the press. She had to fight her way through these people to get to Christ. You're not always going to find what you want at first. But all she wanted to do was touch his garment. For some of us, we're not getting the best herbs. We're not getting everything. If we could just get just enough of what Christ left us to heal us, sometimes that's good enough. And she touched his garment. But she said, "If I may touch his clothes, I shall be whole." That's all she needed. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. See, what the medical industry like to do is they like to treat you externally, especially with cancer. They'll hit you with this radiation and chemotherapy and this and that just to get rid of the tumor. And they'll send you home, and you know in your heart you're not better. Something's wrong. But when it comes to Christ and what he put in the earth through the direction of his Father, that actually heals you from the inside out, treating the blood first. That's true medicine. That's true healing. And he gave it to us from the beginning, but we ignored it. So let's go to the last slide, brother. That's going to be my conclusion. This is where I got the second verse, is where I got the title for this presentation from. This is Ecclesiastes 38, verse 1 through 4. Honor a physician with the honor due unto him, for the uses which he may have of him. For the Lord hath created him. These so-called physicians out here, they're not to be honored because they have no uses with us or the Most High. The physicians that should be honored are the ones that defend the Most High's creation as healing herbs, healing properties, healing medicine, true medicine. For of the Most High cometh healing, and he shall receive the honor of the king. The medical industry does not use what the Most High put in the earth. A person will run and go and get Tylenol. But as soon as you tell that person that the primary ingredient in Tylenol is cherries, they'll still get the Tylenol. Just eat the cherries. Your headache is gonna go away. It's gonna stimulate your brain chemicals. I'm forgetting the chemical right now. But the one that helps you go to sleep is gonna stimulate the production of that. And you're going to sleep good. Just eat a bag of cherries when you have a headache, or take one of them herbs. The skill of the physician shall lift up his head, and in the sight of great men he shall be in admiration. The Lord has created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them. Shalom.